So many entrepreneurs and business leaders feel stuck because they don't know how to connect with their team members, inspire real growth and improvement, and have non or deeper than surface conversations. When I started my business, it was no different. I was constantly frustrated about how I could engage people in the work that they needed to do and then make sure that they continually followed up doing the actual behaviors required to win in our organization. The behaviors that I thought that I had kind of inherently to myself and other team members in our organization have, but not everyone. And it was so frustrating to work with our team members all day long and then come home and be like, man, John and Daniel or Sarah, they just don't get it. And I don't understand what the heck is wrong. And I operated my business like that for years until I found out how to do one-on-ones really, really well. And now I've talked to a lot of leaders after the fact and talking about the issue of one-on-ones, and a lot of leaders say, yeah, I have one-on-ones with my team and we do one-on-ones and there's one-on-ones, and it kind of became a big thing throughout the marketplace in entrepreneurship and business. But more importantly than just doing the one-on-ones, it's what actually happens in the one-on-ones that make the powerful difference. And so that's what I want to help you with today as we talk through how to implement the one-on-ones in your business that help you remove behavioral inconsistencies or inadequacies, that help you connect with your team member on a much lower than surface level, much deeper than surface level, and then actually inspire true growth and proliferate your values throughout your organization as you go through the process of working with excellent team members. Because most of the time, people don't need to be taught. They need to be reminded more often than they need to be taught. And I'm a believer of that because people are smart, they are talented, they are skilled, they are awesome, and they have amazing qualities. Oftentimes, it's just a leader that needs to help draw those things out of the team member so that they can actually apply them and in their workspace. So many times, team members are completely oblivious to what the leader or the boss. I'm gonna make a designation here. There's a boss who just continually goes on frustrated with different team members and never does anything about it really, but yells at them sometimes and tries to tell them what to do sometimes, and then is frustrated and goes home a lot of times and lays in bed at night awake and wondering why the heck his business is not operating as well as it should. And then there's a leader that actually does really great one-on-ones, inspires his team through consistent feedback loops and growth, and he has one-on-one clarity conversations that really help empower his team to do what they're supposed to do and act like they're supposed to act so that they can actually win together. And so this is the thing I'm going to share in this video with you today. So doing one-on-ones, yeah, but not like you think, okay? Doing one-on-ones the way that they actually work and that you love to come to work and you love to see that team member in the next day at work because you know that they're working in your company and living out the values that you have for your organization and that you want to see day after day. All right, so let's get into it. By the way, my name is Jason Ellinger. I am the CEO of Tiger Translations. I've been in entrepreneurship for the past 15 years, working with growing, developing, leading, hiring, sometimes firing, and inspiring and growing a powerful team that has helped me scale my company to a multi-million-dollar company, and we're continuing to grow beyond that. So please like and subscribe to this video and share with a friend who might need this. And this is going to be a brief overview explanation of how to do the one-on-one process. So if somebody in your life knows you could use this information, or maybe it would be encouraged or inspired around how to do a better, maybe you're a team member and you're sick and tired of your boss not knowing what he's doing, you could share this video with them and maybe it'll help them to get better. So over the past 15 years, I've refined this process of one-on-ones, and I've gone through many different iterations, and that's what business is altogether. It's doing something, cranking up the volume and measuring the results and finding out what's working, what's not working, what's good, what's bad, and then implementing and amplifying all of those good things that are working and cutting out the bad. That's in every sector, whether it's in your marketing or in your finance or in your production team, human resources, or sales, whatever it is. That's basically the main thing that we do in every sector. We do a bunch of stuff, then we measure the outcome, and we're like, all right, none of this worked. So let's do none of that again and try something else. Okay, these 3 things worked out of these 10. Okay, cut out 7. Let's amplify this 3. And then we continue the process until we do stuff that actually works. And a lot of time stuff doesn't work. You just want to be standing on top of the pile of mistakes instead of underneath the pile of mistakes. That's what differentiates you from being successful or not successful. And it's those people who continue to make mistakes and actually identify the ones that are bad, cut out the ones that don't work, and hone in on those ones that actually do work, that actually can make and build a business over time. And that's what we do. All right, so let's get into it. Step one, make sure every single team member, every single week, submits a weekly report. I'm going to do a separate video about a weekly report specifically, but you have to know that this is part of the one-on-one every week. They must submit a weekly report every Friday that answers a few key questions. Again, I'm going to do it in a different video. Otherwise, this one will be too long, and I want to stay focused on what we're talking about in this video. So make sure that you have the weekly report. 2, read their weekly report every single week. Don't just have your team members do a weekly report. You have to actually read it and then find out what's inside of it and ask questions about what's going on in that report, get clarifications on what they've said, understand how their work week was, what happened in their work week, and maybe some good or bad things that happened in their personal life, and get to know those aspects of it. I'm not talking about 45-minute slog and talking about relationships and problems, but I'm talking about read what their reports say, what's important to them, and then talk about that in the very first part of the one-on-one. So this is like your icebreaker. This is questions about how their week went, different things that may have come out of the weekly report. You can talk about it at this time. And so step number 1 is reading the weekly report and making sure you talk about what is in the weekly report because you care. Because if you don't care, you shouldn't be leading. Because leaders must care about their team if they're going to lead well. And if you don't care, you should get out of leadership, okay? So you have to care about your team. A lot of people are kind of afraid to do this part because you might get connected to a team member that what if you have to fire them eventually and it's very painful? And I've got news for you. It is very painful when you have to fire somebody you really care about. So it means you need to lead incredibly well and you need to hire unbelievably intentionally so that you have to fire very rarely and team members leave very rarely because it's so awesome to work in your organization. Now that is, I also made an entire training video. It's over an hour long content on how to hire like a pro, how to hire really well. And in that video, I go over all the specifics of hiring incredibly well, and you will see how much work it is. And that much work is required so that you can actually get great team members that stay on your team and that fight the battles of business with you. So if you want to learn more about that, I've made a completely different video for that. However, in this video, again, I'm going to stay focused on the one-on-one. But I do have to mention that because it's so intricately connected to the one-on-one. I can't mention the one-on-ones without mentioning that you have to hire the right people for the right positions on the right bus so that you actually can do one-on-ones well. Because if you hire a wrong person and then try to do one-on-ones with them, you will never be able to connect with them. You will never be able to grow with them. You will never be able to resonate, align, and then help them improve the incorrect behaviors that they're exhibiting. But I do want to warn you against that idea. Like if I get too connected to my team, well, if I have to let them go, then I will, be too painful. And yeah, it is painful. It is very painful and very hurtful when you have to let somebody go because of lack of performance, or maybe even because you hired the wrong person. And that's very painful. And acknowledging your own mistakes and acknowledging your own inadequacies, or maybe acknowledging that somebody can't do the job and you really want them to be able to do the job, but they just can't. And then having to let them go because of that, because you're doing your job as a leader, that it's painful. It's very painful. And I don't want to diminish that fact because if I would just talk about this and then and diminish the fact that it could lead to somebody getting fired because you're actually caring enough to help them align. And if they don't align, if they continue to stay out of alignment over the long term, over a period of time, that means we have to literally part ways because we are going in different directions. And if we're going in different directions, the one-on-one is where you're going to most vividly see that. And then it's going to help you understand how to make decisions faster and better. Or the most beautiful thing about it is that you can course correct faster than ever on a very consistent basis. And that's why it's a consistent drumbeat basis that you do this. so that you can actually course correct and get the behaviors and work alignment, and so that you're working and moving forward together instead of parting ways. The third step is to schedule the one-on-one. Third step in the whole process of doing one-on-ones is actually to put it on your calendar and make sure it's on the same time, on the same day, every week. And yes, it is weekly. It is a weekly meeting that you have with your team members. You can't do this once every 3 weeks or once every 2 weeks. It actually has to be every single week. If you have a leader and you're a leader of a team of up to 5 people, you have to have a max of 6. I mean, you can't do more than 6 one-on-ones well and do your job every week if you are leading a team. So that's what we found as we've worked through the different iterations of this process. You can only do up to 6 people per leader. So if you got more than 6 people, then you have to create another leader and make sure that somebody's helping you. Step 3 is schedule the one-on-one, make it on the same day every week at the same time. Consistency is key. Now we're going to step 4. Step 4 is attend the meeting and ask these key questions. You have to ask these questions in the meeting every single week, week after week after week. This helps you be consistent, helps the team member to understand exactly what is expected when they come to the meeting. They don't just come to the meeting and divulge a bunch of useless facts or a bunch of information about activity that was not moving towards what you wanted. And then you're like, oh man, I don't want to tell them they did a bad job, because they did a lot of good things, but they shouldn't focus on what I wanted them to do. But they did a lot of work, and I can't say they're not working hard, because it just eliminates all that. Okay, it just completely eliminates all of that stuff. So what we do is ask these questions. After we do the icebreaker and the clarification questions, then we move into question number 1. What were you supposed to do between this meeting and last meeting? Don't point at them. Just like they're sitting across the other side of the table, or they're online on a virtual meeting, and you're asking, so what were you supposed to do between this meeting and last meeting? And of course, that's based on your previous one-on-one. So these are specific tasks, specific milestones that you guys discussed in the previous meeting. What are the things that you were supposed to do between this meeting and last meeting? They'll break out a list and say, okay, we talked about this in last meeting, and I was supposed to do this, 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 and this. All right, great. Okay, so the very next question is, all right, so what did you do? Out of all these things, what did you get done? And they're like, okay, so out of all of those things, I got these things done. I got, this, this, and this. This was a little challenging. I didn't make it all the way through. I'm having some trouble with this. I have a roadblock here that I need your help with. But anyways, these are the things that got done. Okay, great. Now we've got perfect clarity on what got done. Now, what are you going to do before our next meeting? Guys, I know this sounds elementary in some way, shape, or form, but it is so unifying and aligning with you and your team as you do this on a consistent basis. They come to the meeting and they're ready to answer the questions. Be like, okay, I got the answer to these questions, and I know I've done a good job because we talked about this last week, and this was the posture, and these are the things that I've done, and I know I've got the answer to these questions, and so I'm not off guard and I'm not off kilter when I'm coming into our meeting. I know what I'm going to be asked. I know what I've done. And if they're a great team member because you did a good job hiring them, again, if you need help on the hiring side, I've got other videos for that. But anyways, if it's a great team member and you're aligned and you're working forward together, and they're plugged in, and you're connected, then you're going to have a team member that wants to get the work done and do a really great job. And so if that's the case, then you get to talk about that at this time, and they get to report on those answers, those answers to this, these answers to these questions, those answers to these questions, whatever it is, you get the idea. And they get to report on that, and they know exactly what you're going to ask. And that's very important, because when they come to that meeting every single week and they know exactly what you're going to ask, for example, what happens when you ask them what they were supposed to do, and then they say, well, I did 1 out of the 6 things we talked about it. And you're like, oh, so you were supposed to do these 6 things and you did 1. And then at that exact moment, you as a leader, you get the chance, like, okay, so goodness, what happened? Like there were 6 things on your list, and we said that you could get them done before this meeting, and you got 1 done. So what happened? And you get to have that conversation. You look them directly in the eye and you're like, okay, so what happened? Why did we hit such a roadblock in being able to produce last week? And you genuinely care, because you genuinely want to know as a leader, like, what in the world happened? Maybe we overloaded their task. Maybe we underestimated how long some task would take. Maybe we are not connected to the reality of what the situation is for whatever the work is. That's a possibility. And that helps you as a leader understand if you're off, but it also helps you understand, okay, if this team member is producing and if they're able to produce what you've assigned to them. And if they are, great. If they're not, you know, in the moment, you know, in the week. This is not week after week after week after week. And then by the time we're this far apart in our understanding of what should be done, you just yell at your team member and are angry at them because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But you're so far apart at that point. It's almost impossible to course correct and keep them on your team. So this gives you the opportunity to, like, okay, hey, you know, these are the things we talked about. You're not able to do them. What happened? How can I help you? How can, you know, what happened? Well, this thing took this much time, and you can go over all of those details in that meeting, and you have this every single week so that it really helps you to be connected and understand, okay, what they're facing, how they're having challenges with it, and what they're working to overcome. All right, so what are you going to do before our next meeting? And by this time, you've already discussed a bunch of stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. We realize that this is taking longer, so we're going to have to break this down into steps. So we're going to do these steps of that longer process, and these are the things I'm going to accomplish before next meeting. Okay, great. That's great. So, what roadblocks that then this just rolls right into the next question naturally. So, what roadblocks are you currently facing that I can help you remove, that you need my help to remove so that you can charge forward this week and not be hindered like we were last week? You know, we had like 7 items and you're only able to get 3 of them done. So, what roadblocks do you need my help with removing? And then they will be able to tell you. And if they tell you a roadblock they're facing, you better doggone fix it. As a leader, you must come in and take action on that. Otherwise, you're going to be discredited as a leader because you're not leading, because you are not doing what you need to do to help your team succeed. And that's called being a poor leader. So, that gives you the opportunity to come in and make sure that you're doing your part, because remember, every position and every operation that we have going on in our organization is a team effort. It takes a team to be able to do anything great. And if your team is going to be able to succeed, it means that you're working together. And so if there are items in their work day that you can help remove roadblocks for, then you should be doing that and doing it very consistently. So this gives you an opportunity to discuss those at this time and helps them also know that you're invested in the process, as well as doing, you're going to do what you need to do to make sure that they succeed, and you're invested in their success. So that is great, and they're encouraged by that, and that helps them to draw them into the process and to really understand that, okay, you know, my boss and my leader cares about what I'm doing. It's very important to them, so important that they're willing to go out of their way to make sure that they remove roadblocks for me. And if they're willing to do that, then I want to be diving in to this work with all of my skills, talents, and creativity to get it done. And if you've hired a great team member and you've gone through that process well and hired good team members, then they are going to be very invested in making sure that everything you've discussed in this conversation is coming to life. And you may be looking at your team right now like, well, heck, if I did that with this team member, they would just be angry and just want to leave. Well, they might not need to be there. You may have people on your team right now that don't need to be there. And I'm going to be talking about that in other videos, helping to help understand and identify that. But it's very, very important in the hiring stage to make sure you have the right people so that you can go through processes like this with your team on a consistent basis. There's no blowups, there's no dissonance, there's no just complete differences of opinion and views on how to do what should be being done. There, you're just unified marching forwards. And so we'll talk about some of those things in another video. All right, so step 5, making sure that you are dealing with the roadblocks and taking care of those, removing those if they've been mentioned to you, and genuinely helping your team members to move forwards. That's the way that you can show your support and be a great leader. Since we've talked through all of this stuff, now you've had an opportunity to observe not only in this conversation, but you've had the opportunity to observe the previous piece of week of work and their interactions and their relations and the things that are going on in and about them through the organization. And maybe you've seen some characteristics or behaviors that are not conducive to a great working environment, to a great, successful contributing team member. And if you've noticed those in the team member's performance, you don't just go home and tell your wife about it or your husband about it. You have to, in this meeting, in this one-on-one meeting every single week, you're like, hey, I saw you talking to so and so, and I realized that you guys got into a pretty good argument over there, and such, you exhibited a really prideful behavior, and you really cut him down in front of the rest of the team, and that's unacceptable. We don't do that here. Or you talk down to another team member. You guys are actually on the same plane. You have nothing to talk down or actually command another team member to do, because you are on the same level. They have a different personality than you. You might be a high D and they're a support personality, but we don't talk to each other that way. We're very respectful. And so that doesn't align with such and such core value that we have in our organization. I want you to be paying attention to that, very closely attention to that. I'm going to be watching for better behavior in this area. And when you do that week after week, a couple options could happen. One, they're going to blow up, be angry, and leave, which is probably the best out of any option. They're like, heck, I can't exist in this organization. You guys are always talking down to me. I can't be here because you guys are all hypocrites, and you can't correct me like that. And you're like, okay, thank you. And you can exit the building because this is not a place for you to work. Or they're going to say, oh man, I didn't realize that. Thanks for pointing that out to me. I really appreciate that. Nobody's ever pointed that out to me before. I'm like, yeah, well, it's very important to us, and we really do care, and we really do want you to stay on our team. But in order to stay, you're going to have to make sure that you don't do that. Like, okay, if you do that 4 or 5 or 6 weeks in a row and you see incremental improvement, great. If you do it 2 or 3 weeks in a row and there's zero improvement, but in the meeting they're like, yeah, I'll fix it. Then you actually bring them into the meeting on that one-on-one and be like, hey, I've mentioned to you this 3 times in our one-on-ones, and I want to help you understand that this is very serious. And so if I don't see improvement, we're going to have to consider further options. And if that does not get their attention, then we get to move into uncomfortable conversations, which is a whole source for another video. However, I want to make sure that you understand that it happens, the initiation for all of this happens in these one-on-one meetings. And so much converges in this one-on-one meeting part. And you can fix so many problems with team member performance just by doing these one-on-ones well. Because more, like I said at the beginning of the video, most of the time people just need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. And once you have clearly identified to them these things that maybe are hindering them from being able to be successful in your organization, you're able to eliminate 99% of the big problems that you're going to face simply because you have effectively addressed the issues in the moment. And so that's what the one-on-one are all about. And they happen very consistently week after week after week. Benjamin, don't move so much. When you have one-on-ones consistently and you do them consistently well, you create a likelihood of success in your team, in your organization, and in each team member's position within your organization that creates energy and creates outcomes and creates alignment that is so fulfilling that you will wonder, why in the world did I ever try to operate my business without doing incredible one-on-ones week after week after week? So if you have had trouble in your one-on-ones in the past, or if you have not practiced them in such a manner consistently and done it well, I would love to hear about that in the comments. Or if you have some extra things that you've seen, some situations that you've seen resolved through one-on-ones that you have been practicing in your organization, please leave those in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the videos. I'm going to continue producing content to help leaders lead, to help people grow their business and scale, but not just scale their sales, that too, but scale their team and their alignment and their likelihood of success because they are connected, aligned, and driving forwards in a unified way. So like, subscribe, share this with somebody who could use it. If you know an entrepreneur, or maybe you're a friend or a boss, or maybe you're a leader and you have other leaders under your command that you would like to help them to better understand how to do one-on-ones well, please share this video with them, and I will see you in the next one.